First up, I'd like to pay welcome to the country, because we're meeting here today on the land of the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and we pay our respects to the elders past and present, because we the people now at Millers Point know how the Aboriginals felt over 200 years ago when they were turfed off their land and made to leave their homes. So what I'd like to do today is to start off and thank you both for being here and allowing the video, because at the previous meeting the video wasn't allowed. So thank you both for that. I'd like to start off with, I'll hand you both these letters. One's to Mike Baird and the other one's to Gabriel Upton, who has the housing policy. So first up, I'll read it out. And it starts off: Dear Minister, I write to you in regards of the relocation process occurring in my community at Millers Point, Dawes Point and the Rocks. I have been a member of this community for 65 years, having been born to number 12 High Street, Millers Point, in 1949, and moving to number 14, where I still reside after the Department of Housing succeeded the Maritime Services Board as our landlord in the 1980s. I was educated in each of the learning establishments in the area, completed an electrical apprenticeship, worked on the City Council before concluding my working life in and around Sydney Harbour as a ship painter and docker. So as you can tell, my whole life has revolved around the community that I'm very proud to be part of. Whilst this unfair decree to remove us from our homes by former Premier Barry O'Farrell and former Minister for Family and Community Services, Prue Goward, I find it unfathomable that after numerous invitations not only to the previous Premier and Minister to come to our community to see firsthand the havoc that she has wreaked upon these proud people. Come and listen to their stories, see the misery they are being subjected to, because you know we're not scary, we're just scared. One suspects, Minister Upton, that you and Premier Baird will not talk to us because you are both afraid to look into the tear-filled eyes of the elderly, the pain on the faces of the disabled, and the despair in the hearts of our most vulnerable. The feeling is that you and your government have abandoned us, making us feel subhuman, past our use-by date, and if you must, with little conscience as how you are mistreating us. Shame on you. Your government and previous government have placed many disadvantaged and vulnerable people within our community, whom we have welcomed, nurtured and protected, because you will not. You seem to have forgotten the multitude of public and social housing tenants who have been law-abiding citizens and have served this community, this city, this state and this country so well for many years. Minister, you must look at the past as well as the future, because there are still generational people who still reside here, people whose forefathers, mothers rose up out of the squalor and despair to build this unique community and maintain our heritage and culture, whilst enduring famine, plague and wars. This has occurred for nearly 200 years in Millers Point, Dawes Point and the Rocks, where public and social housing has existed for over 100 years. Minister, you seem to have had a memory lapse in this area, the first suburb of Australia's European settlement, and with the decree enacted upon us, our community, on the 19th day of March 2014 to socially cleanse an entire suburb. Not one person, not one home, not one street, but all public and social housing from the inner city village, to tear asunder and callously evict tenants, to cast them to all points of the compass. Tenants who rely and depend on each other with tenants that rely and depend on each other, who have shown that they consider each other as family. The date of the 19th of March 2014 will go down in this state's record as one of infamy. We also know that your government is aware of an overseas study that states to remove elderly people away from their friends and support can bring about an premature demise. It was also acknowledged by the Auditor General in 2013 that it is not financially sustainable to remove tenants from their place of abode, but may be more cost effective to maintain to maintain and repair the dwellings that they live in. It is also recommended by the Auditor General that your government formulate a housing policy. We are now over 12 months on and yet still no policy. Minister, with all these facts, how does a government without policy and no Minister for Housing enact such a callous decision without conscience or consultation? Rather, they insult these vulnerable people. These people look to you for governance, support and compassion, but sadly that does not seem to be forthcoming. It seems that money is taking precedent over people, and that, Minister, is not the Australian fair go and not the way I want to see my state. I thank you very much for your time and indulgence, and I am also here as a representative of the Millers Point, Dawes Point and the Rocks Public Housing Tenants Group, and I look forward, Minister, to your reply and certainly a personal conversation. That is both for the Minister and the Premier, which I'll give you. I had the originals. Is that the original? Okay, yeah, that's one. That's the original for Minister Upton, and this is the original for Premier Baird. Okay, fine. Now, as I mentioned to Paul Vivas, I have a statement. You'll see that the letters and the statement are dated Wednesday the 24th of September, because that was when the original interview was supposed to take place. So my statement is, to whom it may concern, I'm here at the Millers Point Community Centre to comply with an edict to meet with Housing New South Wales eviction officers. They may refer to themselves as relocation officers, but what I have witnessed and experienced, the pressure they have brought upon my friends and neighbours, the correct wording is eviction. I am not prepared to discuss the biggest decision in my 65 years of life in my community, Millers Point, with office juniors or government bureaucrats. I will, however, sit down at the table opposite Premier Baird or Minister Upton, as these are the people in positions of power to make decisions on the most important aspect of my life. I feel that wasting not only my time, but the government's time and resources to locate a dwelling elsewhere than Millers Point is an exercise in futility, as I am aware that if the opposition Labor Party wins the next state election in March 2015, they have committed to stopping the sale of properties of Millers Point, Dawes Point and the Rocks, thus enabling us, the tenants, to remain and age in place. I therefore, under the terms of my lease, request that the government reschedule discussion with me after the next state election if they remain in power. Till then, I have met my obligation to meet here today, and I will await your reply. Respectfully, Barney, Gardner. So, as you can see, I don't think that it's appropriate for me to do an interview, because I feel that you'd be wasting your time looking for a place and the resources you use. And as I've stated in that statement, I've been told by the Leader of the Opposition, if Labor win the next election, they will not carry on with the selling of properties, which means we remain here. And if you do persist in looking for a place and find one for me and force me to move, and Labor wins, I know I cannot come back to Millers Point. So rather than take that chance or waste each other's time, I would wait till the next election, and then I will sit down and discuss it again if Liberals win the next election.
If you don't want to go ahead with the interview, what we'll do is we'll go back to our manager to pass that on and see what decision he makes.
Okay, because I feel that's a pretty reasonable explanation of what's going to happen.
I think what Barney is saying is that he's willing to engage in the interview process, but that he doesn't see the utility in having an interview prior to the state election, given that the relocation process may not continue after that time. If, after the state election, the relocation process does continue, then he's willing to sit down again and discuss his housing needs.